All right, let's dive into the mind of Dexter Morgan.
Dexter Morgan.
Yeah, the blood spatter analyst,
Oh, yeah.
who's also, well, a serial killer.
Oh, right.
We've got these 2 YouTube videos, both from, get this, medical doctors.
Really?
Yeah, who break down his character.
Interesting.
We're going to see what they say about, what makes him tick, his mental state.
I like that. What makes him tick? That's good. It's fascinating. You don't often get to see how medical professionals view someone like Dexter.
It's like peeking into a therapist's notes, right?
Exactly. Yeah, the raw take on like a fictional serial killer.
And it's not just about the blood and the mystery. These doctors really
Yeah.
go deep into Dexter's, psychology, is it?
Uh-huh.
Could someone like him change, his motivation?
That's a big question, yeah. You always heard that nature versus nurture debate.
Right.
Like, was Dexter always going to be this way, or did something make him this way?
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't met Dexter,
Yeah, let's set the stage.
he's got this crazy double life.
Uh-huh.
By day, blood spatter analyst.
Oh, the irony.
I know, right? At Miami Metro Police Department.
Wow.
But by night, he's a serial killer.
And just the setting itself, the Miami Metro PD,
Right.
it adds this whole other layer, He's surrounded by people.
Catching the bad guys.
Yeah, trying to catch criminals while he's got this secret. It's this constant balancing act, like walking a tightrope in this moral gray area.
Totally. And it's not just random killings. He's got this code.
Right, right.
These rules about who he kills.
Only the criminals who, slip through the cracks.
Yeah, the ones he thinks deserve it.
Deserving is, that's interesting, right? It's his attempt to justify what he does.
Almost like he's the judge, jury, and executioner.
Exactly, his own little world.
But in the videos, the doctors kind of push back on this code idea.
Yeah, they question whether it's anything more than him justifying his,
His bloodlust.
Yeah, one even says the code changes.
Really?
Yeah, it's not set in stone.
So he just bends it to fit.
It seems like it, yeah. As he gets, more confident, the code gets looser, his reasons get weaker, the victims, it gets a little iffy.
So the code, it's not holding him back. It's almost enabling him.
That's the suggestion, yeah. And this goes back to the nature versus nurture thing.
Right, right.
Was he born this way? Or did something make him this way?
Well, his backstory is dark. Imagine seeing your mother murdered when you're just 2 years old.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, that would mess anyone up.
Yeah, and the videos point to that as a possible, trigger for his dark side.
Makes you think, maybe his mind couldn't handle it, so it turned into these urges, these fantasies of violence and control.
And then you've got Harry Morgan, his adoptive father.
Right.
He sees these tendencies in Dexter, but instead of therapy,
Yeah.
he teaches him this code for killing.
Whoa. Harry is such a fascinating character, right? Good intentions, but so flawed. He thinks he can control it all, Teach Dexter to only kill the right people.
It's like he's giving him permission to be a monster.
As long as he follows the rules. And the videos highlight how that might have actually stopped Dexter from getting help.
Yeah.
From dealing with all this in a healthy way.
Road to hell paved with good intentions.
Right. Shows how important professional help is, We can't just manage something like that without an expert.
Okay, so we've got the trauma, the father figure, the code. But what about Dexter's actual mental state?
Right. Is he a psychopath? Or is it more complicated?
One video uses the 5-factor model, which is the tool psychologists use, to measure personality traits like openness, all that.
Yeah.
I'm guessing Dexter doesn't score high on agreeableness?
You got it. The video says he's got classic psychopath traits, low empathy, no remorse or guilt.
Right.
He's also manipulative, deceptive. He can charm his victims easily.
He's the charming psychopath, the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, but what's interesting is he doesn't fit the mold perfectly. There are things he does that don't quite fit.
Like what?
Well, for example, he's not driven by, a sexual desire to dominate.
Oh, that's unusual.
Yeah, it is. And he's very protective of children.
Huh.
He even, wants to connect, to feel real emotions.
So he's a psychopath with a heart.
Maybe it's this conflict, this struggle within him that makes him so interesting.
He's caught between two worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Darkness and light. And that's what keeps us hooked.
Speaking of that struggle, he talks about his dark passenger.
Yeah, the force that makes him kill.
What did the videos say about that?
The dark passenger, it's a metaphor, right? For the darkness inside him, like a separate voice tempting him.
It's like this constant companion he can't escape.
The videos suggest it might be tied to his childhood trauma.
So a way to cope.
Yeah, but gone wrong.
It makes you wonder, is the dark passenger unique to Dexter?
That's something we all have to think about.
You mentioned he's protective of children,
Right.
which is unusual.
Yeah, it speaks to how complex he is.
So he's picky about his violence.
In a way, yeah. He has his own rules, his own idea of justice.
And one of those rules is no hurting kids.
Right. He hates people who hurt children. sees them as needing protection.
It's like he's creating this safe space for them, even while he's, doing with this other stuff.
Exactly. Monstrous acts and genuine empathy. That's what makes him so compelling.
It shows that human nature is complicated.
Well said.
We've covered a lot: his double life, the code, the trauma, the dark passenger.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
Nature versus nurture, Harry's influence.
And the idea that maybe, just maybe, even a psychopath can have a moral compass. It might be twisted, but it's there.
We left off talking about Dexter's dark passenger and how that trauma from his childhood might have, really shaped him. Now, I'm curious about how someone like that, this monster, basically actually navigates relationships. Like, how does that even work?
It's really interesting. One thing the videos focus on is Dexter's struggle with intimacy.
Okay.
It's like he wants connection, but he's almost built to push people away.
Like he can see it, but can't actually, be a part of it.
Yeah, like looking through a window. And the videos talk about how his relationships, especially romantic ones,
Right.
become these strange experiments for him. Like he's trying to copy what he sees other people doing.
Like with Rita, his wife. He builds this whole seemingly normal life, wife, kids.
Right.
But it's all a front.
Yeah, the videos suggest he might actually care for Rita, but it's distorted, filtered through his psychopathy. He's drawn to her innocence, her vulnerability.
Right.
But those are the things that also kind of scare him,
Because he doesn't get it.
Yeah, he can't fully understand genuine emotion, so it both attracts and terrifies him.
That internal conflict, that's Dexter in a nutshell.
Totally. So what about Deb?
His sister.
Yeah. Is there real affection there, or is she just another pawn in his game?
Because they do seem close.
It's tough, right? The experts struggle with this too. Dexter goes to great lengths to protect Deb, puts himself at risk for her.
But couldn't that also be a way to control her?
It's a good point, yeah. To keep her from knowing who he really is.
Right.
One video says that Dexter's feelings for Deb might be the closest he comes to real love.
Interesting.
But it's all twisted, right? By his need for control.
It's sad. He wants connection, but creates his own isolation.
It really is. And speaking of connections, there's something else the videos mention. Animals.
Animals?
Yeah, they often react negatively to Dexter.
Oh, really?
It's like they can sense something's off.
Like they see right through him.
Almost, yeah. Which it reinforces this idea that he's different not just from humans, but from animals, too.
Creepy. Even animals can feel the darkness.
Makes you wonder if it's something primal, beyond our usual social cues.
Let's switch gears a bit. Dexter's methods, all those rituals, the planning. It's fascinating and disturbing at the same time.
I know, right?
It's like he's turning murder into art.
That's actually a comparison one of the videos makes.
Really?
Art. Yeah, they suggest Dexter gets a certain satisfaction from, taking something chaotic, like killing, and making it ordered, controlled, the plastic sheeting, the tools, all of it. It's all part of this twisted aesthetic.
A performance almost, like a dark ritual.
Exactly, and it's all about control. Like you said, fascinating and disturbing.
And how does he get away with it for so long?
The Miami Metro PD, they're not incompetent.
Yeah, but Dexter's always one step ahead.
Right. That's where the show asks you to suspend your disbelief a bit.
Yeah, it's part of the fantasy, right? You got to believe he's just that smart.
Super intelligent, resourceful, thinking way ahead.
And that makes it fun, right?
Yeah, watching him outsmart everyone. But it makes you wonder about the realism,
Would a real Dexter be that good?
One video argued that a true portrayal of a serial killer would be way too intense for most people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So Dexter's a bit sanitized, more palatable.
A Hollywood version. Witty, the inner monologues, But it makes him more relatable.
Right? We can engage with him, even sympathize sometimes.
Yeah, it's tricky. Showing the darkness, but keeping it entertaining.
And that's why people love Dexter, right? He taps into our fascination with the dark side.
But it's not just the darkness. The show also shows his struggles, his doubts.
Yeah, like he wants something more than all this emptiness.
Do the videos mention that?
They do. One talks about Dexter's evolution, how he gets more introspective as the series goes on.
Really? So he starts to think about the consequences.
Yeah, and he even has these moments of remorse, like little sparks of empathy he's never felt before.
He sees the damage he's doing.
Exactly, and it freaks him out. He starts questioning his code, his reasons, everything.
So is he capable of changing? Can he stop killing?
That's the big question, and it's one that the rest of the series explores.
It makes you think about the nature of psychopathy, right?
For sure. Can someone like that really change?
And what about the code? We talked about it before.
Yeah, the rules he lives by.
To justify his actions?
To convince himself he's not like other killers.
And to create order, right?
Exactly, but over time you see it start to fall apart.
Yeah, the lines blur. The killings get harder to justify.
So the darkness wins, even though he tries to hold on to the rules.
It's scary, actually.
It is, and this brings up the ethical side that the videos talk about.
The ethics.
Yeah, like, does a show like Dexter glorify violence or just show a part of human nature?
That's a good question. It's a debate about any media that shows violence, really.
Right, does it make us numb to it or help us understand it?
No easy answer.
It depends on the person, I think.
But it's clear that Dexter makes us think about some uncomfortable stuff.
It does, about the dark side we all have, and the choices we make.
Now, there's something else about Dexter that's really unusual, and the videos both mention it. The fact that he's not driven by, like, a sexual desire.
Yeah, that's a huge difference from most serial killers.
They often want power, control, often expressed through sexual violence. But Dexter's different.
Right, it's not about that for him. It's about the act of killing itself.
A primal urge. A need he can only fill with violence.
Yeah, it's almost more unsettling because it's harder to grasp. He's driven by something we can barely understand.
And it brings us back to the Dark Passenger, right?
That voice urging him on makes you think, what if we all have something like that inside us?
Scary thought. Maybe the Dark Passenger is just a metaphor for the potential for evil that's in everyone.
Yeah, the urges we have to fight against.
So it's not just Dexter's story, it's all of us.
And that's why people connect with it. It makes us face our own shadows.
What would we do if we had a Dark Passenger?
It's a question that stays with you.
So we've talked about the darkness, the code, the methods. But what about remorse? Does Dexter feel bad for what he's done?
That's key, right? And the videos touch on it. One expert says he might feel a kind of remorse, but it's twisted.
Twisted how?
It's not like normal guilt or shame.
So what is it then?
The video says it's more like disappointment in himself.
Disappointment.
Yeah, that he can't fully control his urges, that he breaks his own code.
So it's about his own standards, not the victim's.
That's the idea. And it shows how warped his morality is. But then there are times he seems to care for Deb, for Rita, even his son Harrison.
Right.
How does that fit in?
Good question.
The experts say that his capacity for love, even though it's limited, is still there. He wants those connections, but doesn't really get them.
Like an alien trying to understand human emotion.
Perfect analogy. And that struggle adds a layer of tragedy to the whole thing.
So he's a killer with a heart, a monster who wants to be human. It's messed up, but fascinating.
It is, and that's Dexter's magic. He makes us see that good and evil aren't always so black and white.
Before we finish this part, I gotta ask, what about Dexter's fate?
You mean in the end?
Yeah. Is there any hope for him, or is he doomed?
The videos have some thoughts on that.
Oh, what do they say?
One suggests that when he fakes his own death, disappears, that could be his way of trying to find redemption.
Redemption. But he's still a killer.
I know, right? It's complicated, but the video says that by leaving, by cutting himself off from everyone,
Okay.
he's choosing to protect them. He knows he's dangerous, that he can't control the darkness, so he sacrifices himself.
So it's selfless, in a way.
That's the argument, yeah. It's sad, but it offers a sliver of hope. Even with all his flaws, he can make a choice that puts others first.
Powerful. It shows that even in the darkest hearts, there can be good, right?
Exactly. It's a natural stopping point for us, I think. We've seen his vulnerabilities, the truth about his code, and maybe even a chance at redemption.
Maybe. We'll have to see in the final part of our deep dive. What do you say we explore the idea of Dexter's legacy next?
Sounds good to me.
All right, welcome back to our Dexter deep dive. We've seen his dark side, his code, his relationships, even a hint of maybe redemption. But as we wrap this up, I keep thinking about his legacy, you know? What do we take away from a character like this?
It's a good question, and one thing that really struck me in these videos is how self-aware Dexter is.
Self-aware.
Yeah, he's constantly analyzing himself like he's watching himself from the outside.
It's like he's running an experiment on himself, trying to figure out why he does what he does.
Exactly. One video even compared him to Data from Star Trek.
Data, the android.
Yeah, remember how Data was always trying to understand human emotions?
Oh, yeah. They're both kind of outsiders looking in, trying to figure this out.
Exactly. And that perspective, it makes us question our own ideas about good and evil, about what it means to be human.
So Dexter, even though he's a killer, can teach us something about ourselves.
I think so, yeah. By seeing the world through his eyes, we see our own darkness more clearly.
The stuff we try to hide, the urges we fight against.
And that brings up another point the videos make. It's all about choice. Dexter might have these urges, but he still makes decisions. He chooses who to kill, who to let live, how to act.
Since he's not just controlled by his dark passenger.
Right. He has agency, and that's important because it means we're not just slaves to our past, you know?
We can choose to be better.
Exactly. Even Dexter. Which leads to the big question the videos leave us with.
Okay, hit me with it.
Could Dexter actually stop killing if he wanted to?
Man, that's the million-dollar question. We've seen his darkness, but also moments of, well, humanity.
Right. So what's the answer?
I don't know. I honestly don't know.
The series doesn't give us a clear answer. It leaves us thinking about the nature of change, about redemption.
And about the mystery of the human heart. It's a
Exactly.
disturbing story, but it makes you think. Dexter shows us that even in the darkest places, there's complexity.
Yeah.
We make choices, and maybe, just maybe, even a monster can change. Maybe.
That's the question we left with. Can a monster change, and how?
It's worth thinking about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the mind of Dexter Morgan. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions.
Time Team 38.